Happy Monday. And yes, you are allowed to be happy even if you opened your news app of choice today and looked around and said, oh my God, the world is on fire. As the Spanish would say, it is en fuego. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. And today I'm going to talk about the importance of joy, even in times such as these, actually, especially in times such as these. Now, historical context to the world. I'm going to say historical context to the world. We're going to be brushing with a very light brush and understand that this is a 10-minute podcast. It is not a rigorous dissection of world history. However, keep in mind that by the numbers and by any stretch of the imagination, much of the world lives in much more peaceful times than they have ever lived at any time in history prior to this age. That's good news. Globally. Now, as we all know, the terrorist organization Hamas attacked Israel a week ago or 2 weeks ago now. And we've slowly uncovered the brutality of that attack, and it was not good. Women, children, civilians, unfortunately babies. A number of my friends have made good points to me as well. Friends who I love and trust dearly, that we shouldn't rush to forget that there's humanity on both sides of the border right now. That women and children in Palestine, particularly in the Gaza Strip, are also bearing the brunt of the retaliation for Hamas's attack. Now, look, this is a confusing issue. Not confusing if you are on the Israeli side and not confusing if you are on the Palestinian side, but it is confusing for those of us who want to be supportive but don't really know how. And there's no real good way to be supportive in a time of war. War is chaos by definition. There's lots of war theorists who talk about how war should be conducted, and they talk about how there are important ways to conduct war, and there's war strategies. Most of these things are thankfully lost on the general population. But it's times like these where we should reflect before opening our mouths. A couple things to keep in mind as you start to weigh in with your opinions on this conflict. Number one, anti-Semitism is absolutely at least a recent high. A lot of people, whether or not they actually have a stake in the game of the conflict in Israel and Palestine right now, want to use this as an excuse to once again highlight what they feel are the rats among us. And that's what you need to know. That's really all you need to know about anti-Semitism. Somebody who is anti-Semitic truly believes that Jewish people are not human. They believe they are rodents. It's disgusting. It's vile. But it's the truth of that ideology. I would caution you as you go through your social media feed to avoid posts that have the dog whistles of anti-Semitism, because it's insidious. A lot of it gets couched in very common sense phrases, and a lot of it uses political arguments against the government of Israel and hides dog whistles of anti-Semitism inside. Before you know it, they've got you in that algorithm on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And make no mistake, the social media companies' algorithms are absolutely designed to silo you into echo chambers. And when you go into that echo chamber of anti-Semitism, it's going to be very hard to pull yourself out, because it's going to start to make a lot of sense, because you're in an echo chamber and you don't hear anything that is actually refuting the arguments. Oh, the Jews run Hollywood. And then they'll start listing off Jewish people who happen to be executives in Hollywood. Well, no, that's not true. Anyone with an ounce of common sense can tell you that's not true. But if the only information you hear is that the Jews run Hollywood, you're going to start to believe that conspiracy theory. Listen for it among your friends and push back. By the same token, on the other side, people are going to couch anti-Muslim or anti-Palestinian feelings in targeted attacks on Hamas specifically. Hamas is labeled the world over as a terrorist organization. Now, in Palestine, it was voted into power, I believe, during the Clinton administration. There was an attempt to broker peace between Israel and Palestine. At the time, it was considered a groundbreaking event. Unfortunately, it didn't hold, and in the aftermath of that, Hamas was voted into power. Hamas is recognized as a terrorist organization around the world, but that doesn't make Palestinians terrorists. Watch out as people start talking about Palestine, that you don't start classifying Muslims as rats, that you don't start classifying Muslims as vermin. If you go too far down that rabbit hole, again, it's going to turn into an echo chamber, and you're going to hear nothing but the fact that anybody who immigrates to the United States from the Middle East, or who is of Palestinian descent or of Arab descent and immigrates to the Middle East or immigrates to the United States, is at risk as a terror cell. Unless you tell people that they're vermin, they're not at risk of being a terror cell. If you start to consider people vermin, that is when you start to have problems, because you told someone they're not human. And I know I said that this was going to be about joy, but it's hard to find joy in this situation, which is why it's going to be very important as I close out this podcast. I know my hand's a little close there, but I've got a pen and I'm using it to gesture. Much like I said in my podcast about remembering our humanity at the United States southern border, which is what's missing from that argument right now. We need to remember humanity in this argument as well. War is breaking out. There is no question about that. War is not good. There is no universe where when a war begins, it's clean. And oftentimes, as we know from history, there isn't always moral superiority in war. The United States and the Allies fighting against the Nazi regime, even that had moral questionability, because the Allies allied. The Allies worked with the Soviet Union, which we know by the numbers killed a lot more people of its own people, killed Jewish people, killed handicapped people, crushed people under its heel. The supposed good guys worked with them to get rid of Hitler and to fight Japan. War is not good. But you need to also remember that you can't allow yourself to be fully consumed by a conflict over which you have no control. And that's where I don't want you, gentle listener, to get lost. Keep in mind, we live in a country far, far away from what's going on in this very tiny corner of the Middle East. What's going on in this tiny corner is horrific. We should be aware of it. We should make ourselves knowledgeable about that area. We should finally take this opportunity to learn more about the Middle East, and not just learn about the violent history of the Middle East. Every area has violent history. Take back some of your joy. Learn about some of the beautiful parts of the Middle East. Learn about some of the beautiful history, the technologies that were developed there, the trade that was developed there, the art. Oh my God, Middle Eastern art is incredible. Look around that region. You'll come to have a deeper understanding of what is actually going on, and you can actually speak with some empathy and some sympathy for what is happening in that region. In that way, you will incorporate having a slight amount of control over how you discuss what's going on. Be very careful in these upcoming days, weeks, months. Don't stray into anti-Semitism. Don't stray into anti-Muslim and anti-Arab rhetoric. Focus and learn. Learn enough so that you cannot possibly speak evil into the world. Because if you know history and you understand things, you cannot speak evil into the world. You just can't, because you actually understand what's happening. And if somebody challenges something that you believed you learned, take them seriously. Look into it, but look into it with a critical eye. And in that way, maintain joy over things that are far away and can feel out of your control. That's all I've got for today. I want to talk tomorrow about specifically how you go about chasing joy, why it's completely okay to, pick up a movie, hang out with your friends, talk about anything except conflicts, worldwide conflicts. But today, I will raise red flags. Stay away from anti-Semitic rhetoric. Stay away from anti-Arab and anti-Muslim rhetoric. Hug your Jewish friends. Hug your Arab friends. And stand against Hamas. That's a terrorist organization. All the blood that's going to be spilled is on their hands, not on the Palestinians' hands. For this specific conflict, I will say, not on Israel's hands. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Go have a great day.